So I'm on this today, the Dave Smith OB6. I updated the firmware recently, which gives you the vintage mode. In case you don't know what that is, it's something they developed on the Prophet 5 when they remade it. You've got this vintage mode button, and the more you crank it up, the more out of kilter the synth gets with itself, and it gives you a real vintage feeling. Really effective, actually. It also sort of loosens up the envelopes and some other parameters. So it just adds a little bit of unpredictability, really, which is what these old synths have in bucket loads. And I've taken this opportunity to create a sound set for it, which is for sale on my website. The link is below. If you want to check it out, you can go to the video on the website, and it shows you all of the 50 sounds on their own, so you can hear exactly what you're getting. It's been great doing the sound set, to be honest, because it really helps me to get deep into this synth, and it's a great synth. I bought it for touring purposes, so I just kind of got the sounds I needed on the tour, and then to be honest, it's just sat in a box most of the time because I've got too many keyboards in here as it is. But coming back to it, I realised how good it was, and I used it on a big pop session yesterday just to road test my sounds and see, do they work in a practical situation? And yeah, they really do. And it's a massive sounding keyboard. The artist was very happy. I'd recommend it to anyone. Probably wouldn't be my first synth because it's not so versatile, but it's very specialized. Anyway, I'm going to talk through it, show you a few little workarounds that I've come up with, and then show you my sounds in a musical context. By the way, if you haven't subscribed yet, do so now and click on the alert bell. All right, let's get cracking. Okay, so once you've uploaded the firmware, you need to switch vintage mode on. The way you do that is you find the hidden global. There's 1 and 2 here, but now there's a third one by pressing bank and global. You see both buttons are lit. Now if you go to page 4, you can switch the vintage mode on and off. It's been really interesting programming the sound set for both the OB6 and the Prophet 6. I feel like I've got to know them really well, and I can really compare between them. There's no clear winner, it just depends what you want. Out of the two, if I was just going to have one analog synth, I'd probably choose the Prophet 6 out of those two, because it's more of a Swiss Army knife type of synth. You can get a lot of different tones out of it, great for live use. Having said that, character-wise, I think the OB6 has a lot more character. It's more analog sounding. They're both analog, but it's just got that real warmth, buzzy, gritty sound in bucket loads. Loads of character, but it's a lot more limited. You can get less tones out of it, or you can get a lot of different tones out of it actually, but they're more specific. If you love that Oberheim sound, that slightly dreamy, nostalgic, sad sounding 80s vibe, this is your puppy. It just does it with so much swagger. Whereas the Prophet 6 is a bit more vanilla, but you can get a lot of different sounds out of it. The filters are much more snappy, so getting funk synths and things like that is easier on the Prophet 6. But you can get them on the OB6. You just have to work a little bit harder. But sometimes maybe you can get more gratifying results at the end of it because the sound quality is so big and fat and lush. I've really enjoyed programming it. I'm just going to show you a couple of workarounds. The other thing that's been interesting actually is to see how some of the effects and things, even though they're the same on both the synths, they sort of feel different. For instance, the distortion on the OB6, which you can access by pressing the effect button and then altering it with a mix. It works really well on the OB6. On the Prophet 6, I hardly ever use it because I don't find it very usable or helpful. Whereas on this one, it just really rounds off more harsh tones. If you've got a lot of resonance on there, put a bit of that dirt on and it just smooths it out and makes it more pleasant to hear, and gives it a more of a retro vibe. So that's definitely better on the OB6 for me. Conversely, there's ring modulation on both synths, and I find it's easier to dial in on the Prophet 6. I've still been using it on the OB6, but you have to be a bit more careful. I have no idea why that is, but just to show you what the ring mod does, it can give you pretty much an extra oscillator because it can track. If I show you, this is the sound without it. If I switch it on, Sounds a bit extreme, but if you really use it very subtly, it can add a little something to sounds. It can be really useful as a third oscillator. Like I say, it doesn't track as well on the OB6 as on the Prophet 6, so it depends on the sound, but it can really work for some sounds. The other thing that I use on both these synths, and it works equally well on both of them, is using Flange 2 as an LFO. If I show you this sound here. I'm already using the LFO to create some vibrato on the patch, which you can hear there, but I want it to be a bit wonky as well, just to give it some more character. So if I switch in the effects now, I've got this. Don't know if you can hear that, it's quite subtle, but if I make it more extreme, it's effectively another LFO. What I'm doing is I'm using the Flange 2 with the mix all the way up, so you're only hearing the affected signal, and then it's giving you a vibrato. That's a really handy little workaround because you've only got one LFO on both the synths, and it's a bit basic, but that just gives you that extra bit of flexibility to dial in something else on the sound. I find with the reverbs on both the keyboards, I've used them in my patches, but I'd probably take them off if I was recording and use a plug-in reverb, which would be better quality, I'd say. But it's great to have them for live use, especially, and you know, just when you're messing around. They are still vibey, they're just not as good as some of the plug-in reverbs. Okay, so I'm going to show you around my sounds. If you're interested in buy them, as I say, go to my website and you can see all 50 sounds and hear them on their own. Let's check them out.
Wow.